Welcome to Prepare For Takeoff. I'm Terry L. Cyrus, the creator and host. We're the podcast dedicated to amplifying Black excellence. Every week, we sit down with a proven professional or a rising entrepreneur. This week, we're sitting down with DEI Manager, author, and public speaker. Give it up for Kimberlee Williams. Kimberlee, what's going on?
Hey, I'm glad to be here with you, Terry. It's good to be here with you, man. I'm excited.
I'm so happy that we were able to get you on this show all the way from the West Coast, Pacific Northwest to be exact, but you represent that DC, correct?
That's right. You know, I ain't never going to rep Washington State.
She said, I'm from Washington, but Washington, DC.
Washington State. That's right. The DMV. Mm-hmm.
That's what's up. First off, please allow me to give you your virtual flowers. They're very well deserved. You've been out here doing the work. You're doing your thing. You came highly recommended. Shout out to Dr. Eddie Moore Jr.
Yes.
He said, you got to have her on the show. You made that happen in record time. So with all that being said, you're originally from DC. What was it like growing up in DC?
You know what? When you say DC, I was born in DC and I was raised in Prince George's County, Maryland, which any Black person from the DMV knows PG County.
Me too.
And I've met PG County folks all over this country, so they know. So it was, you know what? You didn't question certain things that I question now. I grew up in a community that was diverse, but I grew up in the Black community. I grew up in, and I just didn't have to question Black food, where I was going to get Black food from, where I was going to be able to hear Black music. Shout out to go-go music, right? Native to DC. I didn't worry about being in community. I didn't know that was something that in the future I'd have to struggle to find. I was in community all the time. And so it was Chocolate City. It was Chocolate City. It was music. It was culture, right? DC has its own dialect that people don't understand. And it has its own culture. Like Black culture is different, right? We're a collective, but Black culture is different in every major city, right? And so I remember being sat at a table with some folks that are not Black, I'll say that. They said, oh, we intentionally sat the four of you at the end of the table because all of you are from DC. And so, and we all looked at each other like, okay, so what's your favorite restaurant? And we all said something that nobody else knew. And I'm like, listen, when I go home, I want to go to the carryout for wings and fries and mumbo sauce. Like, that's my favorite restaurant. So and they were like, carryout. Is that a carryout? How do you spell that? Carryout. Is that a chain? And I'm like, oh, wow, to explain the concept of the carryout. to explain, I don't even know how to explain that, right? You have to be there. You have to, I don't know. It's just DC culture, I feel, is unlike any other. And when I'm out here and experiencing the ups and downs of Seattle, I miss it.
I have a lot of friends and people that I went to school with, fraternity brothers of mine that live in PG. I know all about whether it's Suitland, Clinton, Largo, Upper Marlboro. So I have friends of mine that whether I went to school with them, whether they're people that migrated there from my home state, West Virginia, Charleston to be exact, who live in the DMV. And it was a great place to visit. And the one thing about it, you'll see a lot of us. So that's always a good thing. It's very heavily saturated with people who look like us. They have some of the wealthiest zip codes in America as far as among Black folks. So there's a lot of rich history in that area. People doing great things. You represent that same quality of individual out here doing your thing. And I always say, when you look at somebody, you can get a testament of what kind of tree they are based on the soil they come from. And I think the soil that you were seated in is the reason why we see the tree before us today.
I'm not going to argue with that. I'm very proud of my heritage and to be from the DC area, especially PG County, because PG County gets a bad rep in the media. And listen, I'm proud to be from PG County. You're not going to hear me diss PG County.
Did you go to school in the DMV or did you?
I did.
You know what school?
So I went to the University of Maryland, College Park, and where I studied foreign language education. And so I grew up speaking English and Spanish. So it was easy for me to decide to focus on Spanish in my coursework. And because I finished my coursework early because I came in advanced. I was forced to take a second language, and so I took French, and so I'm able to
Mm.
navigate French pretty well. Also,
Talk us through how Spanish was that something that you were introduced at an early age from
very
whether
early.
what was that the result of?
You know what? It honestly, it's one of the things that some people would probably refer to as a coincidence, but I don't believe it came to me by chance because it definitely changed the trajectory of my life. Um, I'm one of four kids. I'm number two in the lineup, and number three was my little brother. He was born very, very tiny, very sick, and so my parents had to spend a lot of time in the NICU with my brother, and there was a lot of care needed for my brother, and they got us a nanny, and that nanny spoke no English.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so as a toddler, I mean, it was sink or swim. It was like
Right.
either you're going to understand it or you're not.
Right.
And so I was a toddler when Spanish became my second native tongue. And so my thoughts run in Spanish, my dreams run in Spanish, and my all of my emotions come out in Spanish.
So if you were in New York, you'd be Dominican.
You know what? It's a running joke in our family as to where we're actually from. It's a running joke. We have a list
Hmm.
of all the countries we've been accused of being from instead of this one. So
Hmm.
it's hilarious. It's hilarious. So
And
I mean, it turned my world upside down. Simply because this nanny, Reina, shout out to her and her family from El Salvador. It changed the very trajectory of my life, honestly. I've done some pretty incredible things because I became an interpreter. And so you name it and I've done it. I mean, the the biggest thing I did with that was helping to free someone in jail accused of murder when his
mm,
identical twin brother had committed the murder. So, and the detectives and the lawyers and the team just couldn't understand him. They couldn't communicate with him. And when I was brought in to interpret, finally, they were
mm.
able to identify that his brother had committed the murder, and they were able to arrest him right before he slipped across the border into Mexico. So it was a pretty cool thing to
That
be able to
sounds
be a
like a
part
movie. That sounds like a movie.
of.
I don't want to get off track, but you can't just say that and make me not to ask you the questions. So his twin brother committed a murder, and
Yeah,
I guess because of an eyewitness, they said it was him, but it was
right. Well, and they
really.
looked the exact same. And on top of looking the same, their names were literally the same, minus one letter. So it's like you have twins like Timmy and I don't know, like Timian. Like, like their names,
Mm.
if you glance very quickly, their names were the exact same.
I will say there's a lot of brothers who speak good English who the cops could understand, and they said they didn't do it, and they still doing time. So what was the difference between this person and the
Right,
average brother that's
right.
behind the wall and said I didn't do it? What was
I
the thing that made them realize they hit the wrong person?
I think I think because this man had been in jail, county jail, I'm sorry, city jail for so long, and he was willing to starve himself. He had been refusing food, and refusing water. So he was literally killing himself.
Hmm.
And all because he wanted to maintain his innocence, no matter how bad he had been treated, no matter how the interrogation tactics, no matter what they had used to try to elicit a confession. And when they brought me in, I mean, this guy was weeping. I had never seen a grown man cry like this man was weeping. And he said, please, if you'll just go and look at a picture of my brother, we are the same person. We are the same person in name and in face. And when we all stepped out of the cell and went back to the other side, to look at the administrative work and to pull his brother up in the system, I mean, he had a rap sheet where this man didn't have, the man that was imprisoned didn't have any record, didn't have any record. But
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, his brother had like charge after charge after charge. He was a
Right.
frequent flyer. He
So
was a
right.
frequent.
So it was real easy to realize, okay, you know what? Clearly there was a mistake. You have one brother who has no record and another brother that looks exactly the same, almost the same name. And this brother got
Right,
a rap sheet as long as my arm. There's a good chance
right.
he probably did it.
Exactly, exactly. And they caught him right before he crossed into Mexico. And so it was just it. I mean, it was for me, it was like, what? Are we on TV? Like, this is a
Right.
movie.
This sounds like a movie. Now did he sue? Because clearly he.
No, no, he was still very humble. He was just very thankful to God. He kept thanking me, and he kept thanking God for sending me to his life.
Mm.
He was just very humble, very he was just very thankful to God. And he left.
Now, was that one of your first jobs? Like, 'cause I know you transitioned into education. I know you had a couple of different
Well, those planes were
career.
flying at the same time. I was not sleeping. I was I was a full-time teacher and a part-time interpreter. I was not sleeping.
Man. Wow. So which one came first? Did the
I
teacher?
I started as I started as I start look, I had to think about it. I was like, wait a minute. So here's the thing, Terry, I interpreted my whole life because I started
Okay.
speaking fluently as a kid, but I'd never been paid as an interpreter.
Right.
And
Like,
so
I've
I
been
was
doing this. And y'all gonna pay me?
so I I think I started teaching first. I think I started teaching first. Wait, that's not true. Okay, that's not true. I did as an older teenager, I did get paid as an interpreter.
Okay.
And a translator. And a lot of people don't know the difference, right? Interpreting is speaking and
Right.
translating is writing. But um but I didn't become like I didn't join like a an interpreters like a group of interpreters until I was in my second year of teaching. So I'd had 1 year of teaching under my belt, and that when I was in the classroom, I was teaching Spanish and French, and then I moved into teaching and interpreting part time. I was not sleeping. I was not sleeping.
So you were an interpreter and had been interpreting since you were a kid. What led you to education? Was it the fact that you seen that there was a need for bilingual people in the education system, or was that something that you always wanted to do?
No, education was my plan B. Education
Okay.
was my plan B. I had to fall back on my plan B. My parents were disappointed because my plan A was so lucrative.
Okay. What was your plan A?
Plan A, I knew from like I was in the third grade when I told my parents what I wanted to be, and I had followed that all the way through my senior year of high school. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I loved connecting with animals, still do to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I and my path had led me to a place where I got the opportunity to volunteer working with animals every weekend until I got my internship working at a hospital. First as mainly front desk, but then moving up to being that vet assistant with the veterinarian in different appointments. And so I got to see all the cool stuff. I mean, I had to work up to accepting euthanasia as part of the job, but I had even accepted that. And then listen, man. Listen, it happened. It happened. I think every few weeks or so, our hospital was deemed the emergency clinic or the trauma clinic if your dog was or your animal was having an emergency in the middle of the night or something like that. We stayed open later, and we had like all kinds of like silly emergencies. And please forgive me, pet owners, right? Like, oh, my bird's wing won't like flap, or like my guinea pig won't drink water, or like
You're like,
like,
where the puppies at? I
right?
signed up for the puppies.
We had all kinds of like silly emergencies, right? That I was like, oh, I can definitely do this. I love doing this. And then we had a serious emergency.
Uh-oh.
And to this day, I remember his name. I remember his family. This was a 15-year-old chocolate lab named Montgomery,
Mm.
and his family brought him in, and dad is there. I mean, there's a string of children behind him, and everybody's crying, everybody's scared, everybody's shaking. Montgomery is having a seizure. There is blood flying out of his mouth, and dad is on the cell
Mm.
phone with mom, yelling at mom like, you better get here, why are you not here yet? And the doctor is yelling at me and my colleague April. And this is a real emergency.
This is a real one.
This is real. This is real. We went from like birds' wings to don't flap to like a seizure, and so I am just choking back tears because I'm an empath. I'm an empath through and through. Everybody's crying. And so the doctor is yelling at us, and April and I already know it's a seizure. We're looking to give this dog a half shot of Valium. We get it. We already know. We know. It's protocol. So, but the problem was that he was in such bad shape. There was no way we were going to get this huge dog that was unable to walk because he was having a seizure onto the table designed for big dogs. So we had to lift this heavy. We had to lift this heavy ass dog onto the table designed for small dogs. And I mean, blood is just flying everywhere. And so we get, and then the trick was to get the tourniquet around his arm and to tighten it, but he's like shaking so violently that the doctor is like, hold him down, hold him down.
I'm
And
trying.
there's two of us trying to hold this huge dog down. And blood is like flying in your mouth, in your eyes, in your nose. And so we gave him the half shot of Valium, and he did not stop seizing. And the doctor said, we're going to have to give him more Valium. Well, April and I looked at each other because we knew a full shot of Valium would kill any dog. We knew that. And so we looked back at him and we questioned, like with a questioning look, like, wait, what do you mean? And he says, do as I say, and I'm like, wait, women's rights. Don't tell me what to do, and I'm like, and so we give him more Valium. He doesn't stop seizing. I mean, this dog had maybe 3 or 4 shots of Valium and he did not stop seizing. What should have killed him, honestly. And so the dad is weeping on the phone with his wife and saying, I will not make this decision by myself. You have to come here and make this decision. And the kids are crying. They've sent the kids out. And it is a nightmare. And finally, they give him an overdose, right, to put him down. And he finally, I mean, this took forever for this dog to and may he rest, to pass on to the other side. And then we had to clean up that scene. After the doctor gets in his car and goes home, right? The family says their goodbyes and they go home. And then Abel and I are left to clean up that scene. And I went home soaked in blood. And I said, Mom, I need to talk to you.
It's in for me.
I'm a senior in high school. Like, we've already found the vet school. We've already got the acceptance letter. We've already got, I said, Mom, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't. And she said, you can't do what? I can't be a veterinarian. I can't do it. She said, wait.
You had a bad day at the office.
Right. I was like, Mom, I cannot do this job. And I told her what had happened. And I was like, and I'm weeping, of course. I'm like, I can't do this. This cannot be my life. I can't do this. She said, but you don't have a plan B. I said, I've always had a plan B. And she said, what's your plan B? I said, I'm going to be a teacher. And her face, and my mom is yellow. And so her face just turned like cranberry red. I don't even think she knows this, but her face just like flushed cranberry red. And I was like, you're worried about the money, aren't you? And she's like, Kim, there's a huge difference between the salary of a teacher and the salary of a veterinarian. And
right.
I was like,
huge difference.
I was like, but I can't sleep at night doing that. I can't do that. And she was like, okay, but you don't even know what you would teach. And I was like, I'm good at Spanish. And I would teach Spanish. And she said, okay, Kim, let me pray about this. And I think she just wanted me to leave the room so she could like scream into a pillow or something.
Like, no. What? What?
So that's how I ended up a classroom teacher. I couldn't do it. Thanks to Montgomery, may he rest.
Right, may he rest. Montgomery put you on your path. How long were you in the classroom?
20 years. I was in the classroom for 20 years. 20 years. And the only reason I came out, and I will say it was a unique position. And teachers who teach subjects like math and science and like English, like the subjects that people have to take, they don't get to see the things that I got to see. As a language teacher, I was pulled out a lot to interpret for families that didn't speak English. And you have to remember, I was interpreting part-time, right?
All right.
So
That was your
I,
side gig.
right. So I got to see a lot of things that most teachers never see. So I got to see the poverty that some of our kids were living in. I got to see their families come to school hungry, asking for food. I got to see the barriers for the families that didn't speak English, the resources that were being withheld because they couldn't fill out a form because they couldn't speak English. I mean, just
Right.
all the things. And it pulled at my heartstrings constantly. Now, the part of the plane that I didn't tell you about, Terry, is that also there's another plane that's flying at the same time as any school that I was a part of. In my 20 years in the classroom, I was also the dance director. So I danced my entire life and I became a coach and choreographer at 17. And so
Mm,
I ran the dance team, and the dance team always drew the kids that were the misfits in school. And
hmm.
so I always got to know the story behind the story of those
Right.
kids. That, oh, they're just bad kids. No, I got to see these were the kids that were being raped by their parents. These
Right.
were the kids that were being abused or neglected. These were the kids that were battling clinical depression and suicidal ideation. These were the kids that were, I mean, Terry, I got to see some pretty awful stuff.
Right.
And so it pulled on my heartstrings so much. It pulled me out of the classroom more and more and more, being a part of DEI work until I felt like I was doing the classroom an injustice by not being there full time. And so I
Mhm.
made the decision after 20 years to come out and be a full time DEI director.
Thinking about starting your own business? Make it real with Shopify, the all-in-one platform trusted by millions to sell online and in person. Whether it's merch, art, or digital goods, Shopify gives you the tools to build, grow, and succeed. And here's the best part. When you sign up using the affiliate link in our show notes, you're supporting Prepare for Takeoff and starting your business off right. Click the link and start your free trial today. And when you hear DEI work, a lot of people don't fully understand that. So,
No,
so
not
I
at
want
all.
to give
Not at all.
right. What I want to do, I want you to matter of factly explain to our viewers and listeners when they hear DEI, what does DEI really mean?
So when people hear DEI, first of all, they are relying on what the media tells them it is. And so oftentimes the media shares the loudest story, right? The loudest story gets the oil, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, most of the time that's trans rights or trans athletes playing on what team they're playing on or what gender this and that. And then I have to go in as a public speaker, right? And I have to say, listen, that's not actually what we do. That's not actually what we do. If we're brought in to talk about trans rights or bathrooms, or for example, I did in the last few years work on a committee to help design a shelter. That in that time, I did discuss bathrooms and who's going to what bathroom. But that, if you think of the scope of the last 3 years, the time that I spent on those bathrooms compared to everything else I've done in the last 3 years, minimal, minimal. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is what it stands for, right? And what it
Mm-hmm.
really is keeping my eyes and ears open and my awareness open at all times, looking for where missteps have created barriers for certain pockets or groups of people. And then doing everything in my power to align myself with those that have power to make changes to bring those barriers down for those communities. And so when I say barriers, something as simple as, and we talked about this, right? The elevator tile. This was the very first project that I worked on at when I came to the county, was that there was an elevator tile broken in the elevator. And they said, oh, well, that's on, that's on the list for later. We're not going to focus the budget on that right now. Cause I mean,
Right.
it's ugly to look at, but I said, wait, this is not about aesthetics. This crack in the tile is a barrier to a wheelchair or crutches or a scooter or a stroller, right? These are the people that are using the elevator. And they said, oh, wow, we've never thought of it that way. We'll get that fixed right away. And they did. And so it's my job as a DEI director or as a manager to see those barriers and say, what can we do about it? When the dark season, I know everybody knows the stereotype about Seattle. All it does is rain there. Well, first of all, that's not true. Second of all, The dark season that we go into where there's limited daylight hours, it causes folks lots of depression. Lots of
Mm-hmm.
depression. People battle depression here because of the dark season. What are we doing where the folks that are in power to create programming around depression and mood and suicidal ideation? What are we doing to proactively combat that? And if we aren't, then we aren't doing the work of DEI, because
Mm-hmm.
that's a pocket of community that's being impacted and that has barriers to their success or their very existence, their very lives. So what are we doing without respect of color, age, shape, size? What are we doing to bring those barriers down? Right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about hiring, people think DEI hires are Black and brown people, period. And that's just not true. So if we create a diversity statement that says we want to welcome all, I take that statement and I sit with it and I marinate and I say, okay, wow, you have on here, we don't turn away people with disabilities. So tell me why the elevator is not working this week. Because if somebody's here with a disability and the elevator is not working, a disability that requires use of the elevator,
Mm-hmm.
we can't bring in someone that's in a wheelchair and hire them if the elevator doesn't consistently work. That's my job to fight for that. Another simple example is the button that you press to get a door to automatically open, or our button to open the door has been broken for a while. When do we plan to get this fixed? Because we can't hire someone that depends on this button to open the door
Right.
if the button doesn't work. So then we have
Mm-hmm.
to go back to the policy that we've written and change the policy because it's a lie. That's what
Right.
DEI directors do. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
do. So I review policy all year long. To I, I review everybody's policies, and so I'm constantly reading and looking for the words that are exclusive, or the things that we're not prepared to back up. Like I said, if the
Mm-hmm.
elevator doesn't work, we can't say we welcome people with disabilities. We can't
Right.
do that. So when I got there, I realized that if you did not speak English, if you did not understand English, you could not attend a live meeting with us. Number one, we didn't have interpreters. Number two, we didn't have subtitles or closed captions. So I had to scramble and work with so many different people in leadership. We're talking bare necessities, closed captions in our Zoom rooms and on our public meetings so that anyone could access that. And when I say anyone, I have to put a caveat there because it's anyone from the hearing world. So we make sure the closed captions are there, but we still don't have a way for someone who is deaf to attend a live meeting with the presence of an interpreter. So we are always busy. DEI is never, we are never bored. We are
There's
never
no
bored.
days off. So let me ask you a question. What is the barrier from getting a person who can sign in the meeting? Like, is it a matter of not being able to find someone? Do they not have the budget? What's the
Well, so
barrier
because
now?
most of the time, people who attend our public meetings decide that at the last minute, unless you're like a diehard, like, and we do have regulars, people who show up to all the public meetings, and you know before you go into that public meeting, Terry's gonna be there. We're gonna be able to say hey to Terry today. But sometimes people last minute are like, we should stop by the public meeting and see what's going on. Well, if someone does that who is deaf, all of a sudden we don't have time to get an interpreter. So they can't just drop into a public meeting. They have to
Right.
follow they have to follow a few different steps to let us know ahead of time that they're going to attend a public meeting so that we can then spend money if we are willing to in our budget on an interpreter for that interpreter to be present for that family or that person. If you go back to DEI, let's go back to the E. That's inequitable. Someone from the hearing world does not have to let us know that they plan to attend a public meeting.
Right.
They can
They,
just show up.
they should just be able to show up. And
Mm-hmm.
and when I'm looking at it from a standpoint of if people are made to feel this way, could they in turn sue because they feel
Mm.
like they're being discriminated against?
Oh,
And
absolutely. Absolutely.
so you're actually helping people save money because if someone wanted to turn this into a lawsuit and they say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, why are they discriminatory practices that this school district or this organization have in plain view, in plain sight, and because I may represent a limited few, no one's saying anything about it. If you get the
Right.
right lawyer already attorney involved, You will be on CNN for all the wrong reasons.
For all the wrong reasons. All the wrong reasons.
If an organization is a car, you guys are the blind spot indicators on the mirrors.
Yes, that's exactly what we are. That's exactly what we are. And unfortunately, people don't realize that in letting us go, right? Because a lot of DEI folks have been let go from their positions, or their positions have been eliminated, or their programs have been eliminated. They're losing that extra layer of, because you can bring in a team of lawyers, and maybe those lawyers have not been trained around diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can bring in accountants, and maybe those accountants haven't been trained. And so you'll continue to have the same problems that you had previously, because you don't have the eye, like, right, that magnifying glass through the DEI person that's specifically trained to catch those things. Like,
right.
It's just, I get fired up, Terry. I get fired up because I can't not see these things. I can't not catch these things.
And federally, sad but unfortunately true, they're trying to figure out how can we wipe the slate.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, but what I will say, Washington State has been historically a blue state, and despite what is going on in Washington, D.C., a lot of the blue states have been standing tall as it pertains to DEI. But what I will say, I'm wondering if eventually there's a trickle down if you're trying to get federal money for the organization, and you have DEI front and center as a part of your organization. What fallout, if any, have you experienced in your profession, as well as what you've seen maybe outside of your organization in the state of Washington?
Oh, so much, because, well, let me give it to you from a personal standpoint first. I do a lot of public speaking, and it's something that I'm good at. It's not something that I struggle with. It's something that I'm good at. So, but now that these federal mandates have been handed down, and I sit with, my boss has handed me all the rules, so I'm sitting at my desk looking at all the rules, and all of a sudden, when I'm scheduled to give a training, or I'm scheduled to give a talk, all of a sudden I'm nervous, and I'm tripping over my words, because I'm like, am I allowed to say, let me go back to the rules. Am I allowed to say that?
Right.
Wait, I'm not allowed to say that. Okay. I take that back. Can we delete that off the record?
Right.
So, because all of these new rules go against the core of the work that we do. The core of the work that we do. And what they don't understand is that some of the work that we do, I like to say that my role is a partnership with every single department. One of those departments is human resources. So if I partner with human resources to build retention efforts, right? Because it costs us money when attrition is through the roof. If we can increase retention and lower attrition, then we're saving money. We're saving the institution and the organization money.
Right.
And one of those things have consistently been affinity group efforts. So it is a scientific fact that people need to be around their own tribe, right? So if I don't get to be around my tribe at all, and all the time that I spend in this organization, I'm not allowed to be around my tribe, because now it's been written into law. I have no place to just drop the mask and be my complete self. All of the retention efforts that we have worked on are just out the window. And so that's one of the things that is now written into law. It's written into, not law, but it's written in executive orders, that we are not holding affinity spaces and if we hold one and someone doesn't belong to that affinity group comes along and says, I want to be a part of it, we have to let them in.
So you're saying that if you have an ERG group,
exactly.
and you have an ERG group in an organization, and you're saying that we have an ERG group for Native Americans, but somebody who is a Native American, if they say they want to join, you have to let them in?
Yep, absolutely. It goes against the executive order if I say, I'm sorry, this group is only for Native Americans and you're not Native.
So there's,
how do you can't make this up. You cannot make this up. Like, how do you wrestle with that? And so some
So
of
it's
my
now
other
it's no
colleagues.
longer a safe space. It's no longer a safe space. If
Exactly.
if we can't get in here and speak freely about our frustrations as a group of people, and then
Exactly.
the very people that we're frustrated with, they can
I'm coming
also
to
be
our
in the
meeting.
group, it defeats the purpose. Like, let me
Yes.
ask you a question. Why do you think the powers that be are so threatened by DEI?
At first, I think that they don't realize what it actually is. And I'll give you the example from my own life. When you have not had to experience the need, you will easily vote against it.
Mhm.
And I mean that. So the folks that most willingly participate in ERGs are the folks that need them, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so the only time, for example, the only time that I've heard white folks speak to me about affinity spaces and needing them or really desiring them is when I went to Thailand and I lived there for a year. And I gotta tell you, after 2 months, I just wanted a hamburger and I just wanted somebody to speak English to me and I wanted to be around white people. And I'm like,
Mm,
so wait a minute. So what you're saying is you were looking for affinity.
right.
You were looking for affinity. Well, yeah. I'm like, yeah, so you should be the one on the committee helping affinity groups then.
Mm,
Yeah. So you have to experience it. I do a workshop where I talk about encounters. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes us to reach an encounter before we can understand that. And so I grew up, my older sister was born with severe developmental differences, and you could not have paid me $1 million to go on record and say, this country does not do enough for those with disabilities. And then in 2016, I became one of those people. And then all of a sudden, from one day to the next, I told you I was from the dance world. I woke up, I had a 4-hour dance practice the day before, woke up the next day and couldn't walk. Nothing in between. No warning, no swelling, no pain, no like pops, breaks, tears, nothing. And all of a sudden, I was dumped into the world of those living with physical disabilities. And I called my mom and I said, I can't walk. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, I don't know, but I can't walk. And she went through all the things. And if I could spend the day talking about, and I get to present, I love when I get to present about this because people are shocked because people don't normally talk about this stuff publicly. People are shocked when they hear the things that I experienced. I lived my life for 2 years on one leg. And the things that I experienced that I share with the public, you just don't realize, you don't realize those things are things because you don't have to know. If you don't have to know, you don't have to care. And if you don't have to care, you don't have to vote for those interests. And
right.
so people are easily say, we don't need ERGs because if you're a white person at a company that's all white, at a church that's all white, in a neighborhood that's all white, at a grocery store that's all white, you really don't need ERGs. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it feels like to need to be around people that look like you. You don't know what it
Right.
feels like.
You make a very good point because I'm sure we would be just as guilty of it if
Oh,
our
absolutely.
reality is something like, let's say if you grew up in inner city Washington and you're around nothing but black people,
Yes.
and we start talking about, hey, well, we have to galvanize the troops, if you will, to make
Mm-hmm.
certain that we can be adequately employed. You know, we can have representation in the schools. We can have
Yep.
representation in the community. If you're from Southeast DC, you like, bro, I see
Nah,
that all
I'm
day.
good.
What are you talking
I'm
about?
good.
Like, we good. Why we done came up? We
Yep.
up.
I'm good.
Like,
Nah,
like,
I'm
you know,
good. I'm a pass.
people who don't
Hard
look like
pass.
us, they got to check in. Like,
Exactly.
right. But
Exactly.
let that person leave those inner city communities. Let that person leave, quite frankly, the Eastern Seaboard. And it may be to even a lesser degree, but still we have a presence on the West Coast. Let him go in those middle states. Let
Yes.
him just
Yes.
get off a highway in Kansas. I'm certain he's
Yes.
gonna realize, oh,
Yes.
you telling me that you ain't never seen a brother ever?
Yes.
And the only thing you've been told about people who look like me is what you see on the news
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
and what the media portrays. And you think
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get fair treatment as a result if you put somebody who doesn't look like me and is in an
Mm-hmm.
all black community everybody on the block gonna be looking at him like, what's up?
Yeah, exactly.
Why is
like,
he here? Right? So I think some of those biases we all have, I think that's why it's
Yes.
imperative that we find a way to collectively work together, form those melting pots,
Yes.
embrace the differences that we all come to the table with, and see how we can be a true representation of these United States, because at the end of the
Right.
day,
Right.
all of us came from somewhere different. So
Get
how
out.
can you sit up here and get out of the country? You've come here illegally, but then yet and still, if you come from a part of the world that the people don't look like us, there's all kinds of exceptions that can be made that will allow you to stay in the country. But if you come from what they consider an inferior nation, they getting you out of here quick, fast, in a hurry.
Yep.
And
Next point out.
And in my humble opinion, this is what I think. We know our reality to be what it is, and some of the things that are being said, whether it's in public or in quiet spaces and places, they want to figure out what can we do no different than what we did at Rosewood, no different than what we did at Tulsa, no different than what we did in all of the communities and where people of color were beginning to they weren't just surviving, they were thriving. How can we destroy that progress?
Right.
How can we, okay, wait a minute. They done messed around and had a 2-term black president. They're going to really feel like they are our equals. And then at some point, maybe our kids, they'll be fighting for their place at the table. No, we want to figure out how can we continue to keep the reality as we know it to be skewed in the favor of people who look like us. And if we're being fair, let's keep it real. If we were up, wouldn't we want to stay up? Like, imagine if black folk were running the nation. Why would we want to surrender that? And that's what it really boils down to. A lot of it is human nature.
It's human nature.
It's human nature. If there are things that are working in my favor, and I know that my kids are going to benefit from these things that are in place, and they're a part of the fabric of this country, and if it's going to benefit me and mine, I'm not gonna fight against it.
Nope.
But in the same regard, like, we have to look at the bigger picture and say, look at what you're creating as a result of which. If you keep on putting all these barriers, it's no different than that kid. If that kid was exposed to things and atrocities that they never should have had to live through, you think that kid's gonna come to school normal? So it's no different. So it's no different than if Tyrone can't get a job and Tyrone, for whatever reason, he can't get financial aid because grants have been cut. There's no ability for him to get educated. He doesn't want to join the military. If all of this are barriers that Tyrone knows to be his reality, where does Tyrone have to turn? Right. Now it's no different than anybody, whether you're talking about a human or anybody in the animal world, since you at one point in time wanted to be a veterinarian, and so you had that bloody experience. If you put an animal in a corner, it's gonna be him or you.
Exactly. He's gonna come out fighting.
Yeah, and it could be a squirrel, it can be any animal. And how and why would we as humans be any different? But considering what our history has been in this country, what they'll do, they won't look at it from a humanistic standpoint. They'll look at it as a means to further demonize who we are. Oh, look at him. He's violent. He's this, he's that. But if you do that to anybody, human nature, he's going to do the same thing. When you say, oh, he's black on black crime. No, crime is something that happens in proximity of where the criminal is, where the person is committing the crime. So all of these things that we know to be our reality as far as how we're demonized. And then we have to be fair and say sometimes we may be guilty of demonizing certain people, certain professions. I know we spoke about what was taking place in Seattle and how they just took over the streets of Seattle, said, no thanks, we don't need the police. You can't demonize everybody based on their profession, based on how they look. You have to be open-minded and embrace the differences, whether it's career choices, whether it's who somebody chooses to love, whether how they look, those socioeconomic differences, and realize that the only person that should be out here judging is the man above.
I love asking audiences I just want to know if you think I'm Blue Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter. And I just sit and I wait, and you see people lean over and talk to each other, and I say, but what do you do with a Black person that's raised in a family of cops?
Mm.
And then you hear that hum, that same hum. You hear that same hum.
Mm.
And I say, so now what do you think I am? And they, and so when January 6th was happening, and everybody was watching how the media played it out, right? And people were, and so they call me, Kimberlee, will you lead a healing circle? No, I will not. Kimberlee, well, you always do such great talks when there are times of turmoil. Will you lead us in a talk? No, I will not, because my family members are there protecting the Capitol, and I haven't heard from any of them. So this
Mm.
way y'all are seeing this play out is not how I'm seeing this play out. So no,
Right.
I'm not going to lead a healing circle. I'm sorry. No.
Right.
Call on somebody else to do it.
Call somebody else. Miss me with all of that.
Exactly. I got my cell phone in my hand, like waiting to hear from like PG County. No, PG County hasn't checked in yet. No, because they called out all the counties,
Right.
counties. So I was like,
Absolutely.
I was like, no, sorry, can't lead a healing circle. No.
This episode of Prepare for Takeoff is brought to you in part by Riverside, the platform that I trust to record studio quality podcasts right from my laptop. With Riverside, I get crystal clear audio and 4K video. Plus, it's super easy to use. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, Riverside helps your podcast sound amazing. Try it out for yourself. Click the affiliate link in our show notes and start recording like a pro with Riverside. I'm the kind of person we can talk to, we're blue in the face about all of the problems, but how can we be part of the solution? And I think what we do is we break down those barriers brick by brick, and we show them people who look like individuals they can identify with from all different walks of life. And invite not just people of color to watch these conversations, invite people who aren't of color to watch these conversations so they can begin to rid themselves of some of the biases as it pertains to, oh, wow, I didn't know that people of color did that. Oh, when you think of DEI, I thought this, but we had someone who was a DEI expert and they broke it down and I never looked at it because I have a cousin that's, wheelchair bound, or I have a sister who's this or a cousin who's that. We don't know what we don't know. Right. And it's imperative that we be open to the idea of learning. Yes. And I think it's very easy to demonize something that we don't understand. Yes. And as a result, it makes us feel good because it takes a lot of humility for somebody to say, I don't know.
We're allowed to say it.
We're allowed to say it.
I was like, I don't know. And
let me get back to you.
Wait, what? I was like, let me check on that. Let me dig into that and let me circle back.
Absolutely. And that's being responsible. I'd rather give you no information than bad information.
Yes. Yes.
I don't want to give you bad information. You come back to me and say, this is bad information, because now I lose my credibility. I don't think you're going to lose credibility if you're honest. You tell somebody, I don't know. And speaking of not knowing, I want our audience to know, what are some of the things you're doing as an author, as a public speaker, because you wear all these different hats, or you are the embodiment of Black excellence. So what are some of those things that you would choose to share with our audience?
I'm excited because I'm working on my next book project. And that's exciting because it's geared towards women of color. So it's directly to my sisters, and I'm excited about that. The second thing that I would share is reframing the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion to be around a conversation of humanity, because people can't argue with humanity. So when I get to frame that conversation, it's the reward and the payoff is just something that I can't deny is so different than my work previously. And so when I get to go out and be a part of the community as a public speaker, when I bring that framework, people take a step back and say, oh my goodness, I've never had it. I've never had it put on my plate like this before, but I'm eating all of it. I think that the most recent was the annual women's. Now I'm going to put the words in the wrong order. That happens when you speak multiple languages. You start putting words in the wrong order in English. The annual Women's Summit, the Kitsap Annual Women's Summit. I was the opening keynote for the Women's Summit. I just got to speak at the Pride celebration and here locally, and to share some of my spoken word from the stage. That was really an honor. I don't get to share my spoken word very often, except I'm going next week to share spoken word at the NAACP annual Freedom Fund banquet. So I get to do a lot as a public speaker. But and again, introducing the humanity framework instead of the traditional DEI framework, it breaks down barriers like I've just never seen before, and people engage in the work and want to engage further. Like the notes that I get after being on the stage is just their heart, they fill my heart so much, and I cry a lot reading them. The third thing I would say is when I'm not working on my current book project or I'm not on a stage somewhere, working with people one-on-one. I've had the opportunity to work with people one-on-one, or families one-on-one, or couples one-on-one. I've had people say, so there are some frameworks, because believe it or not, I don't know how we get to adulthood and we don't know how to own our stuff. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing. It's a thing. It's a thing.
It's a real
But
thing.
right, it's a thing, right? One of the frameworks that I teach if I'm on the road giving workshops, and so I've been able to give these workshops all over the country and through Zoom all over the world. And so one of the things that we teach, because microaggressions, and we're not even allowed to talk about that, right? Microaggressions. But microaggressions is a fancy way of saying, like, you misstep, right? You misstep. And that misstep was tied to one of my identities. And I have a framework that teaches you how to go from being a bystander to an upstander. And because you witnessed a microaggression happen in front of you. And most of us, we talk about if I was there, I would have done this. And your neck gets to rolling and all that. And then it happens, right? And your mind is so blown at what happened that you go on mute. And you're like, I can't believe this just happened in front of me. I can't believe she just said that, or she just did that thing. So the framework is to help you move from that place of shock to a place of action. And then the second framework is for when you create that moment, because sometimes we're so shocked at our own behavior and our own bias that when it happens, especially if somebody calls us on it, because as human beings, we want to go like on the defense. That's where we want. But I'm a good person. But that framework holds you accountable and says, here's what you do when you make a misstep. And if you can stick to this framework, it will free you. It will free you from all the human stuff that happens when we make a misstep, the guilt, the shame, the defensiveness, all the things that we go through. I mean, I had a man write to me and say, like, your framework saved my marriage. And I'm like, hey, I didn't know I was saving marriages, but okay. All right. Like,
I'll take it.
Let's get it. Okay. So those three things, I would say, keep my time pretty busy, but to see the reward of the growth and the progress on the other side it's worth every sleepless night. It's worth every sleepless night.
Right. I feel like you're walking in your purpose on purpose. And
Yes.
that's what we always want to encourage people to do. And I feel like it's something that warms your heart and spirit. When you listen to your spirit and you're doing the thing that you enjoy doing, the days go a lot quicker. You are engulfed in what it is you're doing. It's not work. It's something that is an enjoyable experience.
Passionate about it.
I truly thank you for spending so much of your time with us. And before we go, I wanted to give you the opportunity to leave our viewers and listeners with 3 things that you feel will help them prepare for takeoff.
Number one, be yourself. I know it's so cliche. But if you bring authenticity, the world will make space for the authentic version of you. And that is the truth. Number 2, I would say, follow your joy. Follow your joy. Whatever it is that brings you joy. You won't have to work a day in your life. And I know that, again, sounds cliche, but we hear these things if we don't actually do them. But follow your joy. And if you take that step, the road will show up. The road, even if you don't know what the next step is, the road will show up. Number three, dare to take the road that people aren't taking. Find the way and the road and the idea that people aren't taking. And that goes back to me saying that a humanity first idea where DEI is concerned is not a popular approach, but it has filled my calendar. It keeps me busy. So find that road that people aren't taking, and you're going to be plenty ready for takeoff.
I'm certain that people are going to want to plug in with you. How can I get in contact with Kimberlee Williams? Hey, my hand is up in the back. I got a problem.
Hey,
So how can they reach you? Email, social media, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing.
Yes, if you want to hit me up on Instagram, I have embraced my full name. So my full name is out there, Kimberlee Yolanda Williams. My first name has an L-E-E on the end, not an L-Y. You can find me on Facebook, same name, Kimberlee Yolanda Williams. I'm on LinkedIn, same name, Kimberlee Yolanda Williams. You can email me if you want, kim@engagingacrossdifference.com, and difference does not have an S. So kim@engagingacrossdifference.com. And I do respond to every message unless it's hate mail.
So don't come here with no smoke.
Exactly.
Well, Kimberlee, thanks once again. It was an honor to have you on the show. Much continued success. And also, I wanted to thank our viewers and listeners, whether you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, or you're listening on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Audible, iHeart, or Pandora. As you know, every week, we're going to continue to bring you proven professionals or rising entrepreneurs. And all of these conversations, just like this one, will help you prepare for takeoff. Kimberlee, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Terry.